Maya stood in front of the nursery window, her hand gently resting on her swollen belly as she watched the evening sun filter through the pastel curtains. She was 8 months pregnant, glowing with anticipation and love. Her life on the surface looked perfect, a loving husband, a beautiful home, and the miracle of new life growing inside her. Zion had been her college sweetheart, the man who always brought her flowers on random Tuesdays, who kissed her forehead every morning like it was a ritual. They had planned this baby with joy, choosing baby names together and arguing playfully over crib colors and lullaby playlists. Her younger sister, Hira, had moved in a few weeks ago to help during the final stretch of Maya's pregnancy. It was a decision that initially brought comfort. Maya and Hira had always shared a close bond despite their 5-year age gap. Maya had practically helped raise Hira after their father passed away, and their mother worked 2 jobs to keep the family afloat. Having Hira there felt right, or so she thought. Hira was beautiful and vibrant, full of energy and laughter. At 25, she was single, free-spirited, and often the center of attention in any room she entered. She took over the baby preparations with enthusiasm, planning a baby shower, organizing clothes by color and size, and researching the best diapers and bottles. Maya often laughed watching Hira debate over pacifier brands like it was a national decision. Everything seemed light-hearted, even perfect. But over time, little things began to gnaw at Maya's peace. It started with small, almost trivial moments. One morning, Maya walked into the living room and caught a faint scent of her favorite perfume, the one Zion had gifted her for their anniversary, lingering in the air. She thought it was odd since she hadn't worn it in days. Later that week, she noticed the bottle was slightly misplaced on her dresser. At first, she assumed she had forgotten, pregnancy fog and all. But then she walked past Hira's room and saw the unmistakable bottle cap peeking out from her sister's purse. Maya's heart tightened for a moment, but she forced a smile and kept walking. Another evening, around midnight, Maya woke up for one of her frequent bathroom visits and saw a dim light coming from the kitchen. Curious and craving warm milk, she waddled down the hallway quietly. She heard a soft giggle, hushed tones, Hira's voice, unmistakably, and then a man's low chuckle in return. She paused, trying to process the moment. But when she stepped into the kitchen, only Hira was there, phone in hand, quickly pressing the screen off. Hira smiled, saying she was just chatting with a friend. Maya asked about the laugh she heard, and Hira shrugged it off, claiming she had been watching a video. It was a flimsy excuse, but Maya let it go. Maybe she was being too sensitive. Zion, too, had become more distant lately. He spent more time at work, came home distracted, and sometimes forgot the smallest things, like putting lotion on her swollen feet, a ritual he used to insist on doing nightly. He still smiled, still kissed her hello, but there was something missing. An invisible wall had formed between them, and Maya couldn't explain it. Every time she tried to bring it up, he would brush her concerns away, saying he was tired or that she was imagining things. She wanted to believe him. After all, he was under pressure too, trying to manage everything before the baby arrived. One evening, as she sat alone folding tiny onesies, Maya tried to convince herself that it was just the pregnancy hormones. Her doctor had warned her about emotional fluctuations. Maybe she was overthinking everything, seeing shadows where there were none. Still, a strange unease settled deep in her chest, like a low hum that refused to quiet. She placed a protective hand on her belly, whispering to her unborn baby, "It's okay, sweetheart. Mama's just tired. Everything's going to be okay." But even as she said the words out loud, Maya didn't believe them. Something was shifting in her once perfect picture, and though she couldn't name it yet, a storm was quietly gathering on the edges of her world. The days that followed were heavy with silence, the kind that doesn't scream but settles into the corners of the room like dust, unnoticed until you're choking on it. Maya felt it in the way Zion stopped asking about her doctor visits. He used to be the one reminding her of the dates, even rescheduling meetings just to hold her hand during ultrasounds. Now, he either forgot or sent her alone, mumbling something about deadlines and meetings. Each time she returned home with a new scan photo, hoping to share the moment, he would glance at it absently and place it on the fridge without a word. Zion had become quiet, distracted. His eyes no longer lingered on her with affection. Instead, they flicked past her, as if she were a ghost passing through the house. He spent longer hours outside, often claiming work stress, but Maya noticed he didn't come back tired, not the way he used to. Instead, he came home late, showered quickly, and fell asleep with his phone clutched in hand, always locked, always close. The intimacy they once shared had thinned, not just physically but emotionally. She could feel him slipping away like sand between her fingers. What unsettled her more was Hira's increasing presence in Zion's personal space. Initially, it seemed innocent. After all, they lived under the same roof. But Maya started noticing things that didn't feel quite right. Hira would often talk about Zion's day before he even did. She knew about a meeting he had, a client he visited, even what he had for lunch. When Maya asked how she knew, Hira would laugh it off, saying Zion had mentioned it in passing or that she overheard while walking by his home office. Once, Maya found Hira in the study, seated on Zion's chair with his laptop open in front of her. She claimed she was helping him with a presentation because he was so stressed out. Zion didn't seem bothered by it. In fact, he encouraged it. "Hira's just trying to help May," he said one night when Maya expressed discomfort. "You should be resting. Let her handle some of the load." Maya tried to smile and accept it, but her heart ached. Why did it feel like her place in the house was being replaced, piece by piece, by the very sister she loved and trusted? One night, as the world slept and the house lay in stillness, Maya again woke up thirsty. As she made her way to the kitchen, she paused when she heard low voices, laughter, whispers. She stood outside the door, her back against the wall, heart pounding. Hira's voice rang out softly, followed by Zion's chuckle. It was the kind of laugh he hadn't shared with Maya in weeks. The kind that came easily, intimately. She clenched her fists, every instinct urging her to burst in, but she didn't. Instead, she quietly turned back to her room, her breath caught in her throat. Later that night, unable to sleep, she sat on the edge of the bed scrolling aimlessly through her phone when Zion's phone lit up on the nightstand. The screen displayed an incoming call, from Hira. Her heart dropped. It was 1:23 a.m. Hira was in the guest room, just down the hall. Why would she be calling him now? Zion, deep asleep, didn't stir. Maya stared at the phone until it stopped ringing, then placed it gently back down without touching anything else. The next day, she told herself she would let it go, that maybe she was overthinking things. But the doubts were too many to ignore now, the puzzle pieces forming an image she didn't want to see. She began writing. It started with a simple journal entry. "I don't know if I'm being paranoid. I want to believe in them both, but something feels wrong. My baby deserves peace, and so do I." She poured her thoughts into the journal each day, the forgotten appointments, the strange looks between them, the late-night whispers. Writing gave her a small sense of control. When her mind spiraled into worst-case scenarios, she wrote instead of screaming. She recorded every feeling, every moment of discomfort. It wasn't about building a case. Not yet. It was about surviving the uncertainty, holding on to something solid in a world that was beginning to feel paper-thin. And still, when she looked at Zion, she searched for the man she once knew, the one who had whispered promises against her belly, painted nursery walls with excitement, and told her she was the love of his life. But he was fading, and with him, so was her sense of reality. The only thing that remained true was the life growing inside her, the tiny heartbeat that gave her strength when everything else felt like it was falling apart. It started as just another quiet afternoon. Rain tapped gently against the window panes while Maya sat sorting through a drawer of baby essentials. Pacifiers, bibs, tiny mittens. She was trying to stay calm, to focus on what mattered. But the silence in the house was deafening. Zion had left early that morning, saying he had meetings all day. Hira had claimed she was going out to meet a friend for lunch. Hours passed. Neither had returned. Neither had called. Maya got up to fetch a receipt from Zion's wallet. She needed it to complete some paperwork for the hospital. It wasn't snooping, not at first. But when she opened the drawer where he kept his documents, a folded piece of glossy paper caught her eye. It wasn't hidden, just wedged under a stack of receipts and visiting cards. Curious, she opened it. Her breath caught. Deluxe Suite, Grand Meridian Hotel. Reservation, Zion Ollie. Check-in, today, 2 p.m. Nights, 2. Guests, 2 adults. The paper shook in her trembling hands. Her heart began to pound so violently it felt like it might bruise her chest. She stared at the check-in time. It was now 3:15 p.m. He had checked in just over an hour ago. Her first instinct was denial. There had to be a reason. Maybe it was for work? Maybe a surprise for her? But her gut screamed otherwise. She grabbed her phone and dialed Zion's number. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Still nothing. Next, she called Hira. No response. She tried twice more, each time with the same result. Her hands began to sweat. Her mind ran in circles. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she was reading too much into it. But what business would Zion have checking into a luxury hotel during work hours with another adult, and why would both he and Hira be unreachable at the exact same time? A sickening thought slithered into her mind, one she had tried so hard to keep locked away. And in that moment, something inside her broke, the kind of break that comes not with a scream, but with an eerie, breathless silence. She looked down at her belly, cradled it instinctively, and whispered, "I have to know." She couldn't sit in that house another minute. Every corner, every object suddenly felt like a lie. She grabbed her car keys and a shawl and slowly made her way out the door. The rain had thickened, turning into a steady downpour, the sky smeared with dark clouds. The wind howled as she stepped into the car, but she didn't care. Her hands shook as she turned the key in the ignition. The drive to the Grand Meridian Hotel was a blur of windshield wipers and storm-slicked roads. She gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to control her breathing. Her baby kicked, not hard, but enough for her to feel it, as if sensing her turmoil. She placed a trembling hand over her belly. "Almost there, sweetheart. I just need to see. I just need the truth." Traffic was mercifully light, but the storm had slowed everything. Her heart thudded louder than the rain hitting the glass. With each passing second, her thoughts raced wildly. She imagined them together, laughing in a suite, the same way she had caught them whispering in her kitchen. She thought about all the lies, the quiet moments that had felt off. She had convinced herself she was being paranoid. But now she wasn't so sure. When she finally pulled into the hotel's circular driveway, she sat frozen for a moment. The gleaming entrance, the valet rushing forward with an umbrella, the gold-lettered nameplate, it all felt surreal. This was the kind of place couples came for honeymoons, not secrets. Not betrayal. She lowered her window and gave a faint smile to the valet. "No parking, I'm just here to check on a booking." She walked into the lobby slowly, one hand on her back, the other clutching her purse tightly. The receptionist, a young woman with a bright smile, looked up. "I need to confirm a room reservation." "Under the name Zion Ollie," Maya said, trying to keep her voice even. The receptionist clicked a few keys. "Yes, ma'am. He checked in about an hour ago. Deluxe Suite, 12th floor." Maya swallowed hard. "Is he in the room right now?" "I believe so. I can ring up if you'd like." "No," Maya said quickly. "Thank you. I'll find it." The elevator ride felt eternal. Each ding of a passing floor rang in her skull like a warning bell. Her reflection in the elevator mirror showed a pale, frightened woman, one who had dared to chase the truth, even if it shattered everything she believed in. When the doors finally opened onto the 12th floor, she stepped out slowly, her breath shallow, her heart heavy. Room 1206. She walked down the plush hallway, past golden sconces and silence. And then she saw it, the door. She raised her hand to knock but froze. Through the silence, she heard it, faint music and then laughter. Two voices. A woman's. And a man's. Her fingers curled into a fist. She knocked once. Then pushed the door open. It wasn't locked. Maya stood frozen outside the door of room 1206. The soft sound of music filtered through, along with muffled voices. Her breath hitched. Every part of her wanted to turn back, to pretend she had never found the receipt, never driven through a storm, never followed the twisting path her instincts had laid before her. But she couldn't. Her baby kicked again, as if reminding her to be strong. She lifted her hand and knocked once, hard enough to echo. Silence. She knocked again. Still no answer. Then, with a trembling hand, she reached for the door handle. It turned easily. The door creaked open a few inches on its own, revealing a sliver of warm light and the low hum of a love song playing in the background. Heart pounding, she pushed the door open fully and stepped inside. The scene before her struck like a lightning bolt to her chest. Zion sat on the edge of the luxurious bed, wearing a white bathrobe, a drink in hand. His eyes widened with shock, the color draining from his face the moment he saw her. And beside him, lounging on the couch with a wineglass, also in a robe, was Hira. Her lips parted, and for a long second, the entire room fell into stunned, suspended silence. No one moved. No one spoke. Maya stared at them, her husband, her sister, in matching robes, in a hotel suite meant for lovers. She took in the unmade bed, the 2 champagne glasses, the candle still flickering on the table. Her breath grew ragged. Her legs trembled beneath her. Hira was the first to react, scrambling up from the couch and setting her glass aside. Maya, wait, this isn't what it looks like, she said quickly, stepping forward, her voice shaking. Maya looked at her like she was a stranger. Then what exactly is it, Hira? A business meeting in bathrobes. Hira looked to Zion for support. He stood slowly, guilt etched into every line of his face. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Maya laughed then, harsh, cracked, a sound full of disbelief and pain. Say something, she demanded, voice rising. Anything. Lie to me, Zion. Try, just try. Zion stepped forward, arms out. Maya, please calm down. It's not good for the baby. No, she snapped, taking a step back. Don't you dare talk about this baby now. Not after this. How long? Tell me, how long has this been going on? Zion looked away. His silence screamed the answer she already knew. Hira tried again, tears starting to spill. I didn't mean for this to happen. It was a mistake. I was just lost, and he was lonely. You were always tired, and I was around all the time. Maya blinked at her in disbelief. Are you seriously blaming my pregnancy? My exhaustion? Do you even hear yourself? Zion reached for her. Please, Maya. Don't make a scene. Someone might hear. Let's just go somewhere and talk. And that was it. The words hit her harder than the scene itself. Don't make a scene, she repeated slowly. That's what you're worried about right now? That someone might hear. Her voice cracked. You're not worried about the fact that you've betrayed your wife, your pregnant wife, with her own sister? That you lied to me every day under my roof? You're worried about your image, Zion. Her body shook as sobs began to rise. Hot, unstoppable tears rolled down her cheeks. She tried to wipe them away, but they kept coming, falling like the storm she had driven through. Zion stepped closer again, panic in his voice now. I didn't mean for you to find out this way. I was going to tell you. Tell me. She choked. Tell me what? That you've ruined my family? That the man I trusted, the man I loved, chose my sister over me? Hira was crying now, standing in the corner, trembling. Please, Maya. Please don't hate me. I made a mistake. Maya looked between the two of them, and her heart shattered in a way she didn't think was possible. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the betrayal by both people she had built her world around. Her husband. Her sister. The two she thought would protect her always. I don't even know who you are, she whispered, her voice hollow. And then, without another word, She turned and walked out. She didn't care that she was crying in a hotel hallway, that her face was red, swollen, raw. She didn't care about the storm still raging outside. She pressed the elevator button with shaking hands and waited. As the doors slid open, she stepped in and turned around just in time to see Zion rush toward her. "Maya, please." She pressed the close button, the doors shutting slowly between them. As the elevator descended, she sobbed uncontrollably, one hand gripping the railing, the other wrapped protectively around her belly. Her world had collapsed in a single moment. And the pain was unlike anything she'd ever known. The sky was still gray the next morning when Maya stood outside her mother's gate, suitcase in one hand, the other cradling her belly. Her shawl clung to her body, soaked from the relentless drizzle that hadn't stopped since the night before. Her mother opened the door, eyes widening as she took in the sight of her eldest daughter, exhausted, drenched, trembling. "Maya," she said softly, stepping out and wrapping her arms around her without waiting for an answer. "What happened, Beta?" Maya didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her body collapsed into her mother's embrace, and she cried, deep, hollow sobs that shook her shoulders. Her mother, shocked and worried, held her tightly and led her inside, not asking questions just yet. Maya couldn't find the words even if she tried. She just needed to be away. Away from that house, away from the bedroom that reeked of lies, away from the betrayal that kept replaying in her mind like a nightmare she couldn't wake from. Once inside, her mother dried her hair gently, helped her into warm clothes, and made her lie down. She brought warm soup to her bedside, fussed over her swollen feet, and sat quietly nearby as Maya stared at the ceiling, numb. Later that evening, when Maya finally whispered the truth, her mother's hand flew to her mouth in shock. "Hira. Our Hira. No. No, she wouldn't." "She did," Maya said simply, her voice empty. "They both did." Her mother wept then, silent tears full of disbelief and shame. But she didn't ask questions. She didn't blame Maya or offer empty words. She only took Maya's hand in hers and said, "You're not alone. Not now. Not ever." In the days that followed, Hira sent message after message. "I'm sorry, Maya. I wasn't thinking. Please talk to me. I hate myself for hurting you. Please let me explain. I miss you." But Maya didn't respond. She couldn't. Each message was another dagger, a cruel reminder that the one person she had trusted blindly had cut her deeper than anyone else ever could. Zion tried, too. Missed calls flooded her screen. Voicemails she didn't listen to. Maya blocked his number after the third day. Then he switched to email. "Let me fix this. Don't shut me out. Think about the baby." But Maya wasn't shutting him out for revenge. She was protecting herself. Protecting her child. Still, the damage had been done. One evening, her mother found her curled on the floor of the bathroom, clutching her stomach. Maya's face was pale, beads of sweat on her forehead. She could barely speak, only gasping through shallow breaths. Her mother rushed her to the hospital. The doctors monitored her for early contractions, fearing the stress had pushed her too far. She was admitted overnight, and while thankfully, labor hadn't begun, her body was clearly under pressure. Her mother sat by her side in that hospital room, gently massaging her hands, feeding her spoonfuls of broth, whispering lullabies from Maya's childhood. She didn't leave for a second. Her presence was a quiet pillar of strength. Lying in that hospital bed, Maya stared at the ceiling, her hand resting on her belly, feeling the faint kicks of life inside her. It should have been a moment of joy, just weeks away from holding her baby girl. But instead, she felt hollow. Like she was floating in the middle of a dark sea with no one to reach out to. She was surrounded by people, nurses, doctors, her mother, but the two people who had once meant everything had left her more alone than she'd ever been. She whispered to the tiny life inside her, "I'm sorry, my love. I wanted everything to be perfect for you. But I promise, I will still give you everything. Even if it's just me." And with that, she closed her eyes, tears slipping down the sides of her face, not from weakness, but from the ache of surviving a heartbreak that had no name. It was just after 2 a.m. when Maya felt the first sharp wave of pain. She sat upright in bed, clutching her belly, her breath catching as the ache radiated through her lower back and stomach. For a moment, she thought it might be another false alarm. Her doctor had warned her about Braxton Hicks, but this pain felt different. Deeper. Rhythmic. Real. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, calling out for her mother. Within minutes, they were on their way to the hospital. The contractions grew stronger, faster, stealing her breath with every passing mile. Maya clutched her mother's hand tightly in the back seat, sweat beading on her forehead. The storm that had haunted her the night of the betrayal now seemed to echo inside her body. Chaos, urgency, pain. She was only 36 weeks along. It was early, but not dangerously so. The baby was ready, the doctors assured her as they admitted her and prepared the delivery room. But Maya didn't feel ready. Not emotionally. Not when her world was still in pieces, and her heart had barely begun to heal. News of her early labor somehow reached Zion within the hour. Maya didn't know who informed him, perhaps a family friend, perhaps someone at the hospital who recognized his name on the records. But when she opened her eyes between contractions, he was there. He stood in the hallway outside the delivery room, dressed in a crumpled shirt, face pale and tense. When their eyes met, Maya turned her face away instantly. Her mother stepped in before Zion could come any closer. "She doesn't want you here," her mother said coldly. "But I know the law gives you rights. So stay out of the way." Zion nodded, guilt etched across his face. He lingered quietly, watching helplessly as Maya was wheeled into the delivery room, clutching her mother's hand, refusing to acknowledge him. Inside the sterile, brightly lit room, the pain escalated quickly. Maya pushed through wave after wave of agony, her body working harder than it ever had. Nurses encouraged her. Her mother whispered prayers into her ear, wiping her forehead, holding her hand through every scream. There was joy in the air, anticipation. But Maya's joy was tangled with grief. She wanted to scream at the unfairness of it all. That the man who betrayed her could still be here, still be a part of this sacred moment. That he would be listed on the birth certificate no matter what. That the first face her daughter would see might be one Maya no longer trusted. After hours of labor, just as the sky outside began to lighten, the cries of a newborn filled the room. Maya let out a sob, exhausted and overwhelmed, tears streaming freely as the doctor lifted the tiny, wrinkled form of her daughter into the air. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, smiling. They placed the baby on Maya's chest, and time stood still. She was perfect. Tiny fists balled tightly against her chest, eyes squinting in the light, a head full of dark, silky hair. Maya stared at her in wonder, love flooding her heart in a way that pushed aside the pain, the anger, the betrayal, if only for a moment. Zion stood just outside the room, visible through the glass. The nurse walked out to tell him he had a daughter. He asked if he could come in, and after a brief pause, Maya nodded wordlessly. Not for him, but for the baby. He entered slowly, hands shaking. He stood by the bed, looking down at the child that was his, yet felt so distant in this moment. "She's beautiful," he whispered, his voice cracking. Maya didn't respond. "Can I hold her?" he asked carefully. Maya didn't speak, but she looked at her mother, who gently lifted the baby and placed her in Zion's arms. He cradled her like something fragile, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I'm so sorry," he murmured to both the child and to Maya. "It was a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. I never stopped loving you." Maya kept her gaze on the wall, her expression unreadable. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. Her silence said more than words ever could. Zion stood there for a while, holding his daughter, his apologies hanging in the air like dust that wouldn't settle. But Maya had nothing left to give him. Not in that moment. Her heart now belonged entirely to the tiny miracle she had just brought into the world. Maya named her daughter Alina, a name that meant soft and delicate, though the baby had already proven herself to be so much more. From the moment she opened her eyes to the world, Alina became Maya's reason to rise in the morning, to push through the pain, to heal, if not for herself, then for the tiny heartbeat that now depended on her for everything. The early weeks were exhausting, filled with sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and unpredictable crying fits. But through it all, Maya found peace in Alina's presence. Every time she held her daughter close and felt her tiny fingers wrap around her own, something inside her began to mend. The ache of betrayal hadn't vanished, but it no longer consumed her. The worst had happened, and yet, here she was. Alive. Holding her child. Breathing through the grief. Maya's mother became her rock. She woke up in the middle of the night to help with feedings, sang lullabies when Maya's voice trembled with fatigue, and whispered gentle encouragements when Maya doubted her strength. Watching her mother with Alina reminded Maya of all the things she had taken for granted, the resilience passed down from one woman to another, generation to generation. But Maya knew she couldn't heal by simply pretending it hadn't happened. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the loss, they needed to be confronted. Quietly, she began seeing a therapist once a week. At first, she spoke in fragments, as if reliving it all out loud would make it more real. But over time, she found herself opening up, talking about Zion, about Hira, about how empty and worthless she had felt in the aftermath. The therapist didn't offer magical solutions, but she helped Maya unravel the twisted emotions she had buried deep. And in doing so, Maya discovered something unexpected. She wasn't broken, just wounded. And wounds, even the deepest ones, could heal. One afternoon, while scrolling through a parenting forum during Alina's nap, Maya found a post about a local support group for single mothers. Curiosity led her to attend. Nervous and unsure, she walked into the community center, Alina nestled in her arms. She found herself surrounded by women from all walks of life, some newly separated, some long divorced, some widowed, but all united by the weight and wonder of raising children alone. The first session was hard. She barely spoke, only listened. But the stories mirrored her own in ways that comforted her. One woman talked about surviving abandonment during pregnancy. Another described how she rebuilt her career while breastfeeding during Zoom calls. Maya saw strength in them, not perfection, not immunity from pain, but survival. And slowly, she began to share her own story too. These women became her tribe. They texted when Alina had a fever, brought coffee when Maya was too tired to function, and clapped the loudest when she mentioned small victories, like Alina sleeping through the night or Maya applying for an online course in digital marketing. With her mother's help, Maya enrolled in a certification program that allowed her to study from home. It wasn't easy balancing Alina and classes, but it gave her something she hadn't felt in months: purpose. She began sketching out plans for financial independence, daydreaming about starting a small business one day. She no longer saw herself as just a betrayed wife. She was a mother, a fighter, and a woman reclaiming her life. Every morning, as she looked into Alina's bright, curious eyes, Maya whispered softly, "We're going to be okay. Just you and me." And for the first time in a long time, she truly believed it. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind where soft sunlight filtered through the curtains and Alina napped peacefully in her crib. Maya sat on the living room floor, folding tiny onesies and humming gently to herself. The peace she had built over the last few months was fragile but real, and she guarded it like a treasure. Each day brought her closer to a version of herself she was beginning to respect again, not the same woman she was before, but someone wiser, stronger. A knock at the front door broke the stillness. Her mother wasn't home, and they weren't expecting anyone. Cautiously, Maya stood and walked toward the door. The moment she opened it, her breath caught in her throat. Hira stood there, thinner than before, her hair unkempt, eyes swollen and red from crying. She looked like a shadow of the woman Maya once knew, not the confident, glowing sister who had stolen so much, but someone small, broken, and desperate. "Maya," Hira whispered, her voice cracking. "Please, can I talk to you?" Maya said nothing. She didn't step back, didn't invite her in. She just stared. Tears spilled down Hira's cheeks. "He left me," she choked. "Zion, he walked out last week. Said he couldn't live with what we did. Said he still loves you." Her voice faltered. "I have nothing, Maya. No one. I was stupid." I thought he cared about me, but it was all a mess. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was jealous. I always felt like I was standing in your shadow. You had everything, love, a family, a future. I just wanted to feel seen. Maya's heart ached, not from sympathy, but from the final confirmation that nothing about their betrayal had been worth it. Not even to them. Hira stepped closer, pleading now. Please, Maya. Say something. Yell at me, slap me if you have to, but don't shut me out. I miss you. I miss us. Maya looked at her sister, once her closest friend, and saw nothing left. No trust, no bond, just a scar that still throbbed on certain days. She took a slow breath and finally spoke, her voice calm, steady, and heavy with finality. You both chose to break me, she said softly. I choose to heal. Hira's face crumpled, her hands trembling. But Maya didn't wait. She didn't need to. She gently closed the door in her sister's face, the soft click echoing louder than any scream. Inside, she stood still for a long moment. Then, from the nursery, Alina stirred. Maya wiped her eyes, walked toward her daughter's room, and scooped her into her arms. The past had come knocking, and this time, she had chosen not to open the door. Months passed like pages turning in a book Maya never thought she'd write. Life, once chaotic and heavy with grief, had found a gentle rhythm. Alina was crawling now, babbling in her own little language, her big curious eyes always searching, always learning. The apartment Maya shared with her mother had slowly transformed into a haven. Soft pastels, warm lighting, and walls adorned with baby photos and affirmations scribbled on sticky notes. It was no longer a space of retreat. It was a space of growth. Maya had completed her certification in digital marketing and secured a remote job with a small but growing design firm. She worked while Alina napped or played beside her with blocks and rattles. Her income wasn't huge, but it was hers, earned through effort, grit, and late-night study sessions. She was no longer dependent. No longer broken. She was rebuilding, one step at a time. Each morning, she looked into the mirror and saw a different woman from the one who had once stood crying in a hospital hallway. This Maya was tired, yes, but stronger, braver. The kind of mother she'd promised Alina she would be. One spring afternoon, while playing with Alina in the small communal garden, a moving truck pulled into the building next door. A young man stepped out, carrying boxes and laughing as he struggled to juggle a houseplant, a lamp, and a bag of groceries. He caught Maya watching and gave a sheepish grin. Hi. I'm Rayhan. New to the neighborhood, he said, catching his breath. Maya smiled politely. Welcome. I'm Maya. That little one's Alina. Over the weeks that followed, Rayhan became a familiar, comforting presence. He was kind, soft-spoken, and never overstepped. He didn't ask too many questions, didn't pry into her past. Sometimes, they chatted in the garden while Alina played. Other times, he offered to carry groceries or brought her coffee just because he was making one for himself. But what moved Maya most was the way he treated Alina. Never like a burden, never with hesitation. He made silly faces that made her laugh from her belly, picked up her toys when she dropped them, and listened to her nonsensical stories like they were the most important words in the world. In those small, quiet moments, Maya realized what true gentleness looked like, and how absent it had been from her life before. But she didn't fall for him. Not yet. And that was okay. Because for the first time in her life, Maya didn't need a man to feel whole. She didn't measure her worth by someone else's attention or approval. She smiled not because Rayhan was there, but because she had come back to herself. The strongest parts of her had survived betrayal, heartbreak, and loneliness. And now, in the warmth of a quiet afternoon with her daughter in her lap and laughter echoing through the garden, Maya finally understood peace. She lost her marriage, but gained herself, and that was the real miracle.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing. Rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.